never thought I'd be living in a tree at 42 years old. But here I am, sitting on a platform 12 feet off the ground, watching the dead stumble through what used to be my neighborhood. My name's Derek, and my wife Annie is asleep in the corner of our, I don't even know what to call it anymore. Our tree home, our wooden cage, our salvation. A year ago, I was a software developer working from home. Annie taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary. We had a decent 2-story house in the suburbs outside Portland, a mortgage we were chipping away at. Plans to visit her parents in Michigan that summer. Normal shit, boring shit. The kind of life you complain about until it's ripped away and you'd give anything to have it back. The news started with reports out of Seattle. Some kind of rabies outbreak, they said. Aggressive behavior, biting attacks. The footage was shaky phone videos, people running, screaming. One guy getting tackled by what looked like a homeless woman, except she was moving wrong. Too fast, too hungry. Annie wanted to stock up on supplies right away. I thought she was overreacting. We had one of those stupid arguments married couples have, where you're both right and both wrong. And it doesn't matter because you're really just scared and taking it out on each other. She went to Costco anyway, maxed out our credit card on canned goods, bottled water, batteries. I remember being pissed about the credit card. 3 days later, Portland fell. Not slowly, not with warning. It was like watching dominoes made of people collapse in fast forward. The hospitals got overrun first, then the police stations. Much the military tried to set up checkpoints on the highways, but that just created bottlenecks where thousands of people got trapped together. Perfect feeding grounds. Our neighborhood held out for maybe a week. We had a community watch, people with hunting rifles standing guard at the entrance. Rick from 2 houses down, the guy who always complained about our hedges growing too close to his fence, he was the first to turn on our street. His wife shot him. I heard the gunshot from our bedroom window. Then I heard her start screaming, and then I heard the screaming stop. Annie and I barricaded ourselves inside, pushed furniture against the doors, covered the windows with mattresses and plywood I'd bought years ago for a deck project I never finished. We sat in the dark and listened to the neighborhood die, literally die. It's the Johnsons next door, the couple with the yappy poodle that always shit in our yard. I heard them screaming for maybe 10 minutes. The silence after was worse. That's when I remembered the treehouse. 3 years ago, in a fit of ambitious stupidity, I'd started building an elaborate treehouse in the massive oak in our backyard. Not for kids, we didn't have any. But because I'd seen some YouTube video about luxury treehouses and convinced myself I could build one. Spent probably $8 grand on materials before Annie made me stop. Said I was wasting money on a midlife crisis project I'd never finish. She was right. I'd gotten the platform done, maybe 8 by 10 feet, 12 feet up the trunk. Built a decent ladder system with removable sections. Started framing walls, but never finished. The thing sat there for 2 years. A monument to my inability to complete anything, collecting leaves and bird shit. But it was high up. And zombies, because let's stop pretending they're anything else, can't climb. I told Annie my idea at 2 in the morning, 4th day of the barricade. We were sitting in the upstairs bathroom, the only room without windows, eating Chef Boyardee cold from the can. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "A treehouse?" she said. "Flat, not a question. It's 12 feet up. They can't reach us." "Derek, it's not even finished. There's no walls, no roof. We can finish it. We bring up supplies, tools, materials. We make it work." She was quiet for a long time. Outside, something was scratching at our back door, had been for hours. Methodical, patient scratching. "What about food?" she finally said. "Water. We can't live in a tree." We can for longer than we can live here. This house isn't safe. You know it isn't. The windows won't hold forever. The doors won't hold. More silence. The scratching continued. Okay, she whispered. Okay. We spent the next day preparing. Moved everything we could spare from the house to the base of the oak. Annie's Costco run turned out to be prophetic. We had maybe 40 cans of various foods, 12-gallon jugs of water, first aid supplies, batteries, flashlights. I grabbed tools from the garage. Hammer, saw, nails, screws, drill, boxes of both. 2 tarps. Rope, duct tape, a camping stove and propane canisters, sleeping bags, changes of clothes stuffed in garbage bags. The hardest part was getting it all up there without attracting attention. Our backyard fence was intact, but we could hear them on the other side. Lots of them. The scratching at the back door had stopped around dawn, but that just meant whatever it was had wandered off, not that it was gone. We worked in stages. I'd climb up with a load, secure it to the platform, climb back down. Annie would tie the next load to the rope. I'd haul it up. We moved in near silence, communicating in hand signals and whispers. Took us 6 hours to get everything up. My arms felt like rubber. The last thing we brought up was the ladder sections. That was the point of no return. Once we pulled those up, we were committed. No easy way down. Annie went first. I watched her climb, my heart hammering, scanning the fence line for movement. She made it to the platform, turned, looked down at me. Even in the fading light, I could see how scared she was. I climbed up after her. Pulled up the first ladder section, then the second, hauled them onto the platform, and we just sat there, breathing hard, looking at the pile of supplies that represented our entire life now. We did it, Annie said. I wanted to agree, but I was looking at the platform, really seeing it for the first time in 2 years. The wood was weathered gray, warped in places. I could see gaps between the boards. The oak tree itself was solid, massive trunk, thick branches spreading out overhead. But my construction was amateur at best. The support beams were sturdy enough, sunk deep and bolted tight. But the platform itself creaked under our weight. We should start on walls, I said, before it gets dark. We worked until we couldn't see our hands anymore. I had a partial wall frame already built on the north side, and the side facing the house. We reinforced it, added cross beams, started nailing up plywood sheets I'd stored up here years ago. Got maybe 4 feet of solid wall done before the darkness made it too dangerous to keep working. That first night was hell. We strung up one of the tarps as a makeshift roof, angling it to shed rain. Underneath, we huddled in sleeping bags, backs against the new wall, listening to the night sounds. And there were sounds. Jesus Christ, the sounds. Moaning. Not constant, but regular enough. Every few minutes, a low groan from somewhere in the neighborhood. Sometimes close, sometimes far. Footsteps stumbling through yards, tripping over garden borders and lawn furniture. A crash that sounded like something, walking through a fence. Splintering wood, more moaning. Annie pressed against me, her face buried in my shoulder. I could feel her shaking. They're just walking around, I whispered. They don't know we're here. They can't reach us? But I didn't know that. Not for sure. What if they could climb? What if they were smart enough to stack things, build their own ladder? What if they just waited at the base of the tree until we starved and had to come down? I didn't sleep that night. Every sound jolted me alert. The tree itself made noises, branches swaying in the wind, leaves rustling, wood creaking and settling. I started separating those natural sounds from the unnatural ones. The shuffling, the moaning. Once, a scream from a few streets over. High-pitched, desperate, cut off suddenly. Annie heard it too. She went rigid against me. "Don't think about it," I said, which was the stupidest thing to say, because of course she was going to think about it. How could either of us think about anything else? When light finally started filtering through the tarp around 6 a.m., I'd been awake for 28 hours straight. Annie had dozed off maybe an hour before, exhausted into sleep despite the fear. I let her rest and carefully extracted myself from the sleeping bag, stood up, stretched muscles that felt like they'd been replaced with piano wire. From 12 feet up, I could see over our fence into the Johnsons' yard. I wish I hadn't looked. There were 3 of them in there. Mrs. Johnson I recognized by her bathrobe, the pink one she used to wear when she got the newspaper. She was on all fours in the vegetable garden she'd been so proud of, face down in the dirt, not moving. Next to her, Mr. Then Johnson stood perfectly still, swaying slightly. His throat was torn out. I could see the wound even from here, a ragged hole where his neck used to be. His shirt was black with dried blood. The third one I didn't recognize. Could have been a neighbor from another street, could have been someone who wandered in from the highway. It was walking in circles around the Johnsons' patio furniture, bumping into a chair, backing up, bumping into it again, over and over, stuck in some kind of loop. I watched them for maybe 10 minutes, studying them, trying to understand the rules. They moved, so they weren't completely dead. But Mrs. Johnson hadn't moved at all. Was she actually dead? Or just resting? Did they rest? Mr. Johnson was standing, but not walking. The third one was walking, but seemed to have no purpose beyond the immediate obstacle in front of it. I needed to understand this. Our survival depended on understanding exactly what these things could and couldn't do. "What are you looking at?" Annie's voice made me jump. She'd woken up, was standing beside me, looking where I was looking. "Don't," I started to say, but she'd already seen. "Oh, God. Is that Peggy?" "Yeah." "Is she?" "I don't know." We watched together. After another minute, Mrs. Johnson, Peggy, lifted her head. Her face was smeared with dirt and something darker. Blood, probably. She didn't seem to see us. Her eyes were wrong, clouded, milky. She made a sound low in her throat, then put her face back down in the dirt. "They're not dead," Annie said. "They're infected, sick. Does it matter? Maybe. If they're sick, maybe there's a cure. Maybe this is temporary." I wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that in a few weeks, some laboratory somewhere would develop an antibiotic or a vaccine or whatever you use for this kind of thing. And we'd spray it from helicopters and everyone would just wake up, go back to normal. But I'd seen the footage from Seattle. The rapid spread, the total collapse of authority. This wasn't the flu. This was something that broke people at a fundamental level and didn't let go. "We should eat something," I said, changing the subject. "Then keep working on the walls." We ate granola bars and shared a bottle of water. Rationing already, even though we had supplies, some instinct telling us this was going to last longer than we hoped. When we used our teeth to tear open the wrappers because we'd forgotten to bring up silverware or a knife. Add that to the mental list of things we needed. The sun was fully up now. Clear sky, beautiful spring morning. Birds were singing. It was such a disconnect, hearing birds song while watching corpses shuffle through suburban yards. I spent the morning working on walls while Annie organized our supplies. We had to be smart about the limited space. The platform was only 80 square feet, and maybe a quarter of that was already taken up by the tree trunk itself. We couldn't afford clutter. She created zones. Sleeping area in one corner, food storage in another, tools and construction materials along one edge. She even set up a waste area, a bucket with a lid that we'd have to empty eventually. But that was a problem for later. I focused on getting walls up. The plywood I'd stored up here was enough for maybe 3 partial walls. The fourth side, facing out toward the street, I left open for now. We needed to see what was coming. Plus, the thick branches on that side provided some natural cover. By noon, we had a roughly enclosed space. Not waterproof, not insulated, but private, protected. It was starting to look less like a derelict platform and more like an actual shelter. Annie even smiled a little when I finished nailing up the last panel. "It's not so bad," she said. Then we heard the screaming. It came from the direction of the main road, maybe 3 blocks away. A woman's voice, high and terrified, screaming words I couldn't make out. The screaming went on for at least 30 seconds. Long enough for me and Annie to freeze, staring at each other. Hands clutched together. Then it stopped. We waited, but it didn't start again. "We can't help them," Annie said quietly. "Anyone out there? We can't help them." "I know. If we go down, we die. You know that, right?" "I know." But knowing didn't make it easier. Knowing that somewhere a few blocks away, someone had just died badly and we'd done nothing. Couldn't do anything. That was its own kind of death, the death of the obligation to help, to be part of a community, to give a shit about strangers. We were on our own now. I went back to work. Built a frame for the tarp roof, secured it properly so it wouldn't collapse in wind or rain. Annie figured out a system with rope and a bucket to haul water up from the house's rain gutters. We still had running water, for now. But we didn't know how long that would last. Better to collect what we could while we could. That afternoon, we saw our first herd. I was reinforcing the support beams, making sure they could handle more weight as we added structures, when Annie grabbed my arm and pointed toward the street. They came down the middle of the road, maybe 30 of them, walking in a loose group, no formation, no coordination. Some were in normal clothes, jeans, t-shirts, one guy in a full business suit. Others were in hospital gowns, bloody and torn. One woman was completely naked, her skin gray, covered in bite marks and scratches. They weren't running, just walking, shambling really. Some limped, dragging injured legs. Others walked normally, or as normally as possible when you're dead. They made noise. That low moaning we'd heard all night, but multiplied. 30 voices groaning in unison created this weird harmonic sound that made my skin crawl. A few broke off from the group, wandered into yards. One went right past our house, down the side yard. I held my breath as it passed directly under our tree. It didn't look up, didn't pause, just kept walking until it hit our back fence, bounced off, turned, and wandered in another direction. "They're following the road," Annie whispered, "like they remember how to walk on roads. Muscle memory, maybe. Whatever's left in their brains just replays old patterns." "Where are they going? Does it matter?" The herd passed. Took maybe 5 minutes for all of them to shuffle by. When the last one, a teenage kid in a Blazers jersey, half his face torn off, disappeared around the corner, we both exhaled. 30 of them, Annie said. Just walking around. How many are out there? In the whole city? I didn't answer because I'd been doing the math in my head and didn't like the result. Portland metro area had about 2.5 million people. If even half got infected in the first week, that was over 1 million of those things stumbling around out there. And that was just Portland. Seattle was probably worse. LA, San Francisco, every city up and down the coast. "We need more food," I said, redirecting to practical concerns. "What we have won't last more than a few weeks if we're careful. Maybe a month. The house? Too risky. We already cleared out most of the good stuff. Not the basement. We barely touched the basement. She was right. Our basement was partially finished. Annie used it as a craft room. I had my old weights and a workbench down there. But there was also a deep freezer we'd bought a few years back, usually full of bulk meat and frozen vegetables. And shelves of canned goods Annie rotated through, her semi-religious stockpile against emergencies. We'd have to go down, I said. Down from the tree, into the house, back up. I know. The house might not be secure anymore. Something could have gotten in while we were moving supplies yesterday. So we checked first. Look through the windows. Listen. I hated the idea. Hated it. We were safe up here. Going down meant exposing ourselves, putting ourselves back in their world, at their level. But she was right about the supplies. We needed that food. Tomorrow, I said. Early morning. We plan it tonight. Go at first light when they're less active. She nodded. We spent the rest of the day finishing what we could on the treehouse. I built a better ladder system using rope and the wood sections I'd brought up, something we could raise and lower quickly. Annie reinforced the floor, adding extra support beams underneath where the weight of supplies was causing the most stress. That night, we ate beef stew from a can, heated on the camping stove. It was the first hot meal we'd had in days, and it tasted better than anything I remembered from before. We ate slowly, rationing but savoring. After dark, we lay in our sleeping bags and talked in whispers. Do you think anyone's coming? Annie asked. FEMA or the military or anyone? I don't know. Maybe they're dealing with their own outbreaks. Every city, every country. This might be everywhere. That's a cheerful thought. You asked. She was quiet for a moment. Then, my parents, my sister. Don't. I can't help it. They're in Grand Rapids. Is it there too? Are they? We can't know. Can't think about it. We have to focus on us, on surviving right here. I know. I keep wondering if they're wondering about us. If they're trying to call and getting nothing. If they're scared. I pulled her close. I'm sure they're fine. Michigan is far from the coast. Maybe it didn't spread there yet. Maybe they're locked down somewhere safe, waiting it out. Neither of us believed it. But we needed to say something. Sleep came easier the second night. Exhaustion helped. But I still woke up every few hours to strange sounds. Once to something big crashing in the distance, a car accident maybe, or a building collapsing. Once to rapid gunfire, a full automatic burst that echoed and died. Once to nothing at all, just my own anxiety jerking me awake. Dawn came gray and overcast. Rain threatening but not falling yet. Perfect for our supply run. The dimmer light would make it harder for them to see movement. We prepared carefully. I'd wear my hiking boots, heavy jeans, a thick jacket. Layers that would be hard to bite through. Annie the same. We'd each carry a backpack for supplies. I'd take the crowbar from my toolbox as a weapon, something with reach. Annie would carry the hammer. Stay close to me, I said, as we prepared to lower the ladder. We go down together, move together, come back up together. No separating for any reason. I understand. If something goes wrong, if they come at us, you climb back up. Don't wait for me. Just climb. Derek, promise me. Fine, I promise. I didn't believe her, but there wasn't time to argue. I lowered the rope ladder. It unfurled down the trunk, landing with a soft sound in the dead leaves below. I listened, heard nothing but wind in the branches and distant moaning, far enough away not to worry about immediately. I'll go first, I said. Count to 10, then follow. The climb down felt like descending into cold water. Every foot lower, the fear increased. By the time my boots hit ground, my heart was hammering so hard I thought they'd hear it blocks away. I scanned the yard. Empty. Fence still intact. The back door of the house stood closed, deadbolt still in place. Good signs. Annie landed beside me. We moved toward the house, staying low, eyes constantly moving. I had the crowbar ready. Annie had the hammer. We reached the back door, and I pressed my ear against it, listening. Silence. I unlocked the deadbolt slowly, trying not to make noise. Turned the handle. The door opened inward with a faint creak that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet morning. Inside, the kitchen looked exactly as we'd left it. Ransacked from our supply gathering, but empty. No movement. I stepped in, Annie right behind me. We stood there for a moment, adjusting to the dimness, letting our eyes pick out shapes. The smell hit me then. Something rotten. Old food in the fridge probably, without power. The electricity had cut out 2 days ago. But under that was something worse, something organic and wrong. Basement, I whispered, pointing. The basement door was in the hallway just past the kitchen. We crept toward it, and I had my hand on the knob when we heard the scratching. It came from upstairs, rhythmic scratching, like something dragging nails across the wood. Then a thump, then more scratching. We froze. Master bedroom. Annie breathed in my ear. That's the master bedroom. Something was upstairs, in our bedroom. Had been there this whole time, maybe. Trapped or hiding or just stuck in some loop like the one in the Johnsons' yard. The scratching continued. Steady, patient. I looked at Annie, mouthed, "We go fast." She nodded. I opened the basement door, and we slipped through, closing it behind us as quietly as possible. The scratching upstairs didn't change rhythm. Whatever it was, it hadn't hurt us. The basement stairs creaked under our weight. Each sound made me wince. We descended into darkness. No windows down here, no light. And I'd brought a flashlight, clicked it on. The beam cut through the blackness, revealing the familiar space. Annie's craft table, my weight bench, boxes of Christmas decorations. And there, against the far wall, the deep freezer and the shelves. We moved quickly. Annie went for the shelves, started loading cans into her backpack. I opened the freezer, and the smell that came out almost made me gag. Without power, everything inside had started to rot. Meat turning gray-green, ice cream melted and refrozen into a disgusting sludge. Total loss. "Freezer's done," I whispered. "Just get the canned stuff." We worked in silence, loading our packs with as many cans as we could carry. Soup, vegetables, beans, fruit. Annie found a jar of peanut butter, another of jam. I grabbed a box of crackers that had been stored down here, still sealed. How we packed until our bags were full and heavy. Above us, the scratching stopped. We both froze, listening. Footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps across the upstairs floor. Moving from the bedroom toward the stairs, toward the main staircase, not the basement. "We need to go," Annie said. We moved toward the basement stairs, packs heavy on our backs. I went first, flashlight in one hand, crowbar in the other. Reached the top, pressed my ear to the door. The footsteps were in the front hallway now, between us and the back door. "Shit," I breathed. "What do we do?" I thought fast. The basement had a small window well on the side of the house, facing away from the street. It would be tight, but we could fit through. Better than trying to get past whatever was in the hallway. "Window," I said, pointing. We went back down. The window was high up on the wall, maybe 7 feet. I dragged my weight bench under it, climbed up, The window was one of those sliding types, and thankfully, it wasn't locked. I pushed it open, looked out into the window well. Empty, clear. "Come on," I said to Annie. She climbed up beside me. I went through first, squirming out into the window well, then reaching back to help pull her through. The packs made it awkward, but we managed. Once we were both out, we climbed the window well ladder to ground level. We were on the side of the house now, between our house and the Johnsons'. I could see into their yard. The 3 from yesterday were still there, but now 2 more had joined them. 5 total, just milling around with no purpose. "Back to the tree," I whispered, slow and quiet. We crept around the corner of our house. Moss, the backyard was clear. The rope ladder still hung from the tree, swaying slightly in the breeze. We were maybe 20 feet from safety. That's when the back door opened. It stumbled out into the yard. Male, maybe my age, wearing pajama bottoms and no shirt. His chest was torn open, ribs visible. He'd been dead at least a few days. The skin was gray, mottled, but he was moving, turning his head side to side like he was searching for something. Us. He hadn't seen us yet. We were to his left, partially hidden by the corner of the house. But we couldn't stay here. The Johnsons' yard was to our right, and those 5 were close enough to hear if we made too much noise. I looked at Annie. She looked at me. We were trapped between them. The thing in the pajamas took a step forward, still scanning. Another step. And he was moving away from the door, away from the tree. If we waited, maybe he'd wander far enough that we could slip past. Then Annie's pack shifted. Just a small movement, but one of the cans inside clinked against another. The thing's head snapped toward us. For a second, we just stared at each other. Me and Annie with our packs and our weapons, this dead thing with its torn open chest and clouded eyes. Then it opened its mouth and made a sound. Not a moan, but something higher pitched, almost like a call. And the 5 in the Johnsons' yard answered. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted for the tree. Behind us I heard them coming, feet stumbling through grass, that calling sound multiplying. I reached the ladder first, grabbed it, started climbing one-handed while keeping the crowbar in the other. Annie was right behind me. The pajama thing reached the base of the tree just as I got to the platform. It grabbed at the rope ladder, actually grabbed it, and started trying to pull itself up. They could try to climb. They just couldn't succeed. It made it maybe 2 feet before its grip failed, and it fell back. Tried again. Failed again. Below it, the other 5 had arrived, clustering at the base of the tree. They reached up with pale arms, fingers grasping at nothing, moaning that horrible harmonic sound. Annie scrambled up beside me. We both collapsed on the platform, breathing hard, looking down at the 6 of them gathered below. "They heard us," Annie gasped. "They heard the can and they came." I know. They're attracted to sound. I know. We watched them for a few minutes. They didn't leave. Just stood there, reaching up, moaning, like they knew we were up here but couldn't figure out how to reach us. "We need to pull up the ladder," I said. We hauled it up, coiled it on the platform. Without it, they couldn't even try to climb. We were safe. But now we had 6 of them at the base of our tree, and who knew how many more might come to investigate the noise. We unloaded our packs in silence. 23 cans, the peanut butter, the jam, the crackers, plus what we'd already had. We now had maybe 6 weeks of food if we rationed carefully. Not great, but better. The 6 below us stayed for hours. Into the afternoon, just standing there, occasionally moaning, occasionally reaching up. They didn't get tired, didn't get bored, just waited. What if they don't leave? Annie asked. They will eventually. Something else will attract their attention. What if it doesn't? I didn't have an answer for that. Around sunset, the rains came. Not hard, just a steady drizzle. The zombies didn't react. They just stood there getting wet, their clothes soaking through, water running down their gray skin. We retreated under our tarp roof, ate cold beans from a can, listened to the rain and the moaning. We can't go down again, Annie said. Not for a long time, not until they forget we're here. I know. That means we're stuck with what we have. 6 weeks, maybe 8 if we really ration. We'll figure something out. Like what? I looked around our little shelter. 12 feet up in a tree, 80 square feet of platform, walls made of old plywood and hope. What were we supposed to do when the food ran out? Forage? Hunt? We couldn't get down. Couldn't leave. Then I looked up. Through the gaps in the tarp, I could see branches extending out from the tree in all directions. Thick branches, strong enough to hold weight. We expand, I said. What? The tree. We build out into the branches, make the platform bigger, create ways to reach other trees, other areas. We go up and out, not down. Annie followed my gaze. That's crazy. So is living in a tree during a zombie apocalypse, but here we are. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she laughed. Just a short, sharp bark of a laugh, but it was the first time I'd heard her laugh in days. Okay, she said. Okay, we go up. The next morning, the zombies were still there. 7 now, another had wandered over during the night. They stood in a loose circle around the tree trunk, swaying, moaning occasionally. Above them, we started planning. I still had lumber up here, enough for maybe a small extension. And the tree itself had 3 major branches extending out at about the same height as our platform. If I could build walkways along those branches, we could potentially reach other trees in the yard. The oak wasn't alone. There was a birch about 15 feet away, and a maple beyond that. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was our only option. I started with the closest branch, the one extending toward the back fence. It was maybe 18 inches in diameter, solid. I built a small catwalk along it, just 2 feet wide, using the remaining plywood nailed directly to the branch itself. No railings, couldn't spare the material. Just a narrow walkway about 6 feet long. Annie watched from the platform, me holding rope in case I fell. I didn't fall, but I came close twice. Working 12 feet up is one thing. Working 15 feet out on a branch with nothing but air on either side is something else entirely. By the end of the first day, I had the catwalk finished. It extended out to where the branch started to narrow too much to support construction. From the end of it, I could see over the back fence into the next street over. There were more of them there, a lot more. Maybe 50 shambling around in the street, flowing around abandoned cars, bumping into each other. I watched one walk face first into a telephone pole, bounce back, and walk into it again. And again. And again. We're surrounded, I told Annie when I climbed back to the platform. I know. I mean, really surrounded. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. I know. Derek. We ate dinner in silence. Canned chicken noodle soup split between us. The 7 below us were still there, still waiting. That night, I had my first dream about falling. I was walking the catwalk I just built, but in the dream, it was miles long, extending out forever. And below me, instead of 7 zombies, there were thousands, an ocean of them, reaching up, moaning. And then the branch broke and I was falling, falling, falling into those reaching hands. I woke up gasping. Annie was already awake, sitting with her back against the wall, looking out at the night. "Can't sleep either?" I asked. "Every time I close my eyes, I see them. From the school." "What school?" "My school. Riverside Elementary. I keep thinking about the kids. Third graders are 8, 9 years old. Are they all?" I moved closer to her, put my arm around her shoulders. "Don't do that to yourself. I keep seeing Lucy Brennan's face. She was this sweet kid, always wanted to help, always asked questions. She had this gap between her front teeth. And now I keep imagining her out there, wandering around with that gap-toothed smile. Except she's dead and... Stop! Annie, stop!" She was crying now. First time since this started. She'd been so strong, so practical, but something about the third night, the isolation, the endlessness of it, broke something in her. I held her while she cried. Didn't tell her it would be okay. Didn't lie and say everything would go back to normal. Just held her. "We're going to die up here," she said between sobs. "Aren't we? We slowly starve or fall or just give up." "No." "How can you know that?" "Because we've survived 3 days. Then we'll survive 3 more, then 3 more after that. We just keep surviving in 3-day chunks, and before we know it, it's been a year." "A year," she repeated. "You think we'll be here in a year?" "I think we'll be somewhere in a year. Maybe here, maybe somewhere else. But we'll be alive." She pulled back, looked at me. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy from crying. "You really believe that?" "I have to." She nodded slowly. Okay. 3 days at a time." We fell asleep like that, holding each other. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was already up, and the zombies below had grown to 12. Over the next week, I expanded the platform. Built 2 more catwalks along different branches, then creating what amounted to a 3-armed structure with the main platform at the center. 1 arm reached toward the back fence, 1 toward the side of the house, 1 toward the front yard. Annie worked on making our living space more livable. She rigged up a better water collection system using tarps and buckets, channeling rainwater into our stored jugs. She organized the food by type and expiration date. She even created a small garden using soil we'd brought up and some vegetable seeds from the basement. Probably wouldn't produce anything. But it gave her something to do, something to care for. The zombies below fluctuated. Sometimes 5, sometimes 20. They'd wander off and others would wander in. But there were always some. Always that constant moaning, always those reaching arms. We learned their patterns. They were more active during the day, more sluggish at night. They responded to sound, but not light. Quick movements attracted them more than slow ones. And they never gave up. If one latched onto the idea that food was in a certain direction, it would keep going that way, until something else distracted it. 10 days in, we ran our first test with the catwalk system. I wanted to reach the birch tree. If I could build a platform there, we'd have 2 separate living spaces, more room, more options. I walked out along the back catwalk, moving slowly, testing each step. The zombies below tracked my movement, following me to the end of the platform. About 15 of them clustered directly beneath me, moaning up. From the end of the catwalk, I could see the birch. It was close, maybe 8 feet between my branch and the nearest birch branch. Went too far to jump, but maybe not too far to bridge. I had rope. Lots of rope. I tied one end around the oak branch, the other around a length of 2x4. Then I threw it. First throw missed completely. The 2x4 sailed past the birch branch and fell to the ground. The zombies swarmed it, grabbing at the wood like it was food. I pulled it back up slowly. Second throw caught. The 2x4 wedged into the V where two birch branches met. I pulled the rope tight, tied it off. Now I had a rope bridge between the trees. I tested it, gave it my full weight, bouncing slightly. It held. "You're not actually going to cross that," Annie called from the main platform. "Just testing it," I called back. But I was lying. I was absolutely going to cross it. I started across, hand over hand on the rope, on feet balanced on the 2x4 below. The zombies went crazy, moaning and reaching. The ones who'd been standing under the oak shambled over to cluster beneath me as I crossed. Halfway across, the 2x4 shifted. Just a little, but enough to make my heart stop. I froze, hanging there, 8 feet above about 20 zombies who really, really wanted to eat me. "Derek," Annie screamed. "I'm fine," I lied. It's fine." I kept going, reached the birch branch, pulled myself up onto it, straddling it like a horse, breathing hard. From here, I could see even more of the neighborhood. The birch was closer to the street, and I had a clear view down the road in both directions. What I saw made me wish I hadn't looked. The street was packed, not just 20 or 30 zombies, but hundreds. They filled the road from curb to curb, shambling in a slow-moving mass toward the main highway about a mile away, like a river of dead people flowing downhill. In the other direction, toward the downtown Portland, smoke rose from multiple fires. Big fires. Building fires. The skyline I'd known my whole life was obscured by black smoke. "Derek?" Annie's voice, small and scared. "What do you see?" "Nothing good," I called back. "I'm coming back." The return trip was easier. Knowing the rope would hold helped. I made it back to the oak, back to the main platform. Annie was waiting, her face pale. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad. Really bad. This isn't going to blow over in a few weeks." "I know." "No, I don't think there's anyone coming to save us. I think everyone who was going to evacuate or get rescued or whatever, that already happened, and we're on our own." She sat down heavily. "So what do? We survive. We keep building. We make this place sustainable." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." 2 weeks in, we developed a routine. Wake up with the sun, check the water collection, eat a small breakfast, usually crackers with peanut butter, rationed carefully. I'd work on construction projects while Annie tended the garden, organized supplies, or kept watch. Lunch was always soup, split between us. Afternoons I'd rest while Annie did whatever projects she had going. Dinner was vegetables or beans, sometimes with crackers. Then we'd sit and talk until dark and sleep. The talking became important. If we didn't talk, didn't keep engaging with each other, I think we'd have gone crazy. We talked about everything. Our childhoods, our first date, i.e. the time we went to Hawaii and got food poisoning the first day. We talked about movies we'd seen, books we'd read. We talked about the people we'd known and tried not to think too hard about whether they were alive or dead. Sometimes we talked about the future, what we'd do when this was over. Annie wanted to move somewhere with no people, maybe Montana or Alaska. I wanted to find her parents, make sure they were okay. We both knew these were probably fantasy conversations, but we needed the fantasy. 3 weeks in, the first really hard rain came. Not a drizzle, but a full storm, with wind and lightning and rain coming sideways. Our tarp roof held for about 10 minutes, then tore free and sailed off into the darkness. We huddled against the wall, soaked instantly, trying to protect the supplies. I threw my body over the food stores when Annie covered the tools. The rain was cold, almost icy. My teeth chattered. The storm lasted 3 hours. When it finally passed, we were hypothermic, shaking, miserable. Everything was wet. The sleeping bags, the spare clothes, the food labels washing off the cans. "We need better shelter," Annie said through chattering teeth. "A real roof, real walls." She was right. What we had was fine for fair weather. But we couldn't survive winter up here with just tarps and plywood. I spent the next week building a proper roof structure, angled it steep so rain would run off, used every piece of plywood I had left, sealed the seams with duct tape. It wasn't beautiful, but it was functional. When the next rain came, 3 days later, we stayed dry. Annie made our walls more permanent. She found some old paint in the basement supply run we'd done before we'd been trapped up here, and painted the inside walls white. It made the space feel bigger, cleaner, less like a prison. 1 month in, our food situation was becoming critical. We were down to maybe 15 cans. The peanut butter was gone. The crackers were gone. At our current ration, we had maybe 10 days left. "I need to go foraging," I said. "Foraging where? We can't get down." "Not down, out. There are other houses, other yards. Maybe some have gardens, fruit trees. I saw an apple tree in the miller's yard when I was working on the birch platform. The miller's yard is 3 trees away. I can build bridges, rope and wood, connect the trees like a highway. That's insane. We're out of options." She knew I was right, and we spent the next 2 days building. I created a rope bridge from the birch to a pine tree in the miller's yard, then from the pine to their apple tree. Each crossing was terrifying. Each bridge felt like it would break. But I made it. The apple tree had fruit. Small, early-season apples, but fruit. I picked maybe 20 of them, stuffed them in my pack. Also found some blackberry bushes growing wild along the miller's fence line. Picked those too, thorns tearing up my hands. When I got back to the main platform, Annie cried at the sight of fresh fruit. We ate 3 apples that night, slowly, savoring every bite. It was the best meal we'd had in a month. "We can do this," she said. "We can actually survive." I wanted to believe her. That night, I woke up to screaming. Not far away, but close, in one of the nearby houses. A woman's voice screaming for help, screaming that they were inside, screaming, "Please, please, please." Then silence. Annie was awake too. We lay there in the darkness, holding each other, not speaking. What was there to say? 6 weeks in, we'd expanded our tree network to cover 5 different trees across 3 yards. I'd found 2 more fruit trees, a pear and a plum. Both had some fruit, enough to supplement our canned food. We'd also found wild greens growing in one abandoned yard, and Annie figured out which ones were edible. We weren't thriving, but we weren't dying. It was a kind of equilibrium. The zombies below had thinned out, only 2 or 3 at a time now. The big herds had moved on, heading toward downtown Portland for reasons we couldn't figure out. Maybe they were clustering together, drawn to each other's moaning. Maybe they were following some instinct to return to where population density was highest. I started taking more risks. Built a platform in a maple tree that overlooked the next street over. From there, I could see 5 different houses. Watch for signs of other survivors. I saw none, just more zombies. And occasionally, bodies that weren't moving. Real corpses, people who died and stayed dead. I tried not to look at those too closely. 2 months in, Annie got sick. Started with a cough, then a fever. She tried to hide it, but up here in 80 square feet, you can't hide anything. "It's just a cold," she insisted. "We don't have medicine. If it's more than a cold, it's just a cold." But I was terrified. Out here, away from hospitals and doctors and antibiotics, even a cold could kill. I made her rest, gave her extra water, fed her the last of our canned chicken soup, kept her warm with both sleeping bags. The fever lasted 3 days. I barely slept, watching her, checking her breathing, feeling her forehead. On the 3rd night, her fever broke. She woke up weak and pale, but alive. "I thought I was going to die," she whispered. "You didn't, but I could have. Next time I might." Then we make sure there's no next time. We keep ourselves healthy. We're careful. She looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Acceptance, maybe. Or resignation. The understanding that we were in this for the long haul, and nothing was guaranteed. "Okay," she said. "Okay." 3 months in, I made a discovery that changed everything. I'd built a platform in a tall fir tree about 6 houses down from ours. From up there, I could see for blocks. Yes, one afternoon, scanning with binoculars I'd found in the miller's house, I saw movement on a rooftop about a 1/4 mile away. Not zombie movement, human movement. Someone was up there, on the roof of what looked like a warehouse or small factory. They were moving with purpose, doing something I couldn't quite make out. But they were alive. Definitely alive. I watched for maybe 20 minutes. Saw at least 2 different people, maybe 3. They seemed to be farming. Looked like raised garden beds on the roof. Smart, safe. "We're not alone," I told Annie when I got back. "What?" "There are other survivors. I saw them. On a roof, maybe 8 blocks from here." "How many?" "At least 2, maybe more." She sat down heavily. "We should try to contact them." "How?" "We can't get down, and we can't cross 8 blocks of zombie-infested streets. Signal fires, flags, something." I thought about it. We could try. But what would it accomplish? Even if they saw us, even if they responded, we were still stuck up here, still isolated. "Let's think about it," I said. "Plan it out properly." We spent days debating. Build a signal fire? Too risky. Might attract every zombie in the area. Flags? We didn't have anything bright enough, and they might not be watching in our direction. Light signals at night? Possible, but same problem. They'd have to be watching. In the end, we decided to wait. Keep an eye on them. See if their group grew. See if they tried to contact anyone else. We weren't in immediate danger. We had food, water, shelter. We could afford to be patient. But knowing others were out there changed something. Made the isolation feel less absolute. We weren't the only ones who'd survived. We weren't the last humans in Portland. 4 months in, winter started to set in. The temperature dropped, rain became more frequent. Our breath fogged in the morning. At night, even with both sleeping bags zipped together, we shivered. I'd weatherproofed as best I could, but the platform wasn't insulated. Cold air came up through the gaps in the floorboards. Our water stores would freeze if we weren't careful. Annie got sick again. Not a fever this time, but a deep cough that wouldn't go away. It scared me more than the fever had. I could hear fluid in her lungs. Pneumonia, maybe, or bronchitis. Either way, bad news. I made her rest, fed her the last of our good food, kept her warm, but she just got worse. "I need medicine," she said one night, on voice rough. "Real medicine, antibiotics." "I know. The pharmacy, 3 blocks away. There might still be supplies. I can't get there, can't get down." "You have to try." I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd lost weight. Her face was gaunt, eyes hollow. The cough had drained her. If I didn't find medicine soon, she was going to die up here. "Okay," I said. "Okay." I'll go. I spent the next day planning. The rope bridges worked between trees, but they couldn't get me to ground level. I needed a new system, some way to reach the ground, get to the pharmacy, get back up. The answer was obvious, even though I'd been avoiding it. The ladder. I had to use the rope ladder, descend to ground level, and risk everything. I waited until dawn. Zombies were slowest in the early morning. I'd seen that pattern over months of observation. They didn't sleep, but they were less active. Stood around more, wandered less. Annie was too sick to argue. She just looked at me with those hollow eyes and nodded. I lowered the rope ladder, stood at the edge of the platform, looking down. There were 4 of them at the base of the tree. Not a lot, but 4 too many. They looked up as the ladder unfurled, started moaning, reaching. I waited. Maybe they'd wander off, but they didn't. They just stood there, moaning, waiting. "Fuck it," I muttered. I climbed down, got to about 8 feet off the ground before the first one grabbed at my foot. I kicked it away, kept descending. 6 feet. The reaching hands were everywhere now. 5 feet, I could smell them, rotten meat and old blood. 4 feet, I let go of the ladder and dropped. He landed in a crouch, rolled, came up running. The 4 of them turned to follow, but I was already 20 feet away, sprinting across the yard. They were slow, so goddamn slow. I could outrun them easily. Until I rounded the corner of the house and ran into about 30 more. They were in the front yard, clustered around something, a deer carcass looked like. All 30 heads turned toward me. All 30 mouths opened in that moaning call. I ran. Backyard, vault the fence, into the Johnsons' yard. Their sliding glass door was broken. I went through it, into their house. Dark inside. The smell was ungodly. I didn't look around, didn't want to know what was in here. Just ran through to the front door, out into the street. The pharmacy was 2 blocks south. I could see it from here. I ran down the middle of the street, dodging abandoned cars, jumping over debris. Behind me, the moaning grew. They were following. The pharmacy's front window was smashed. I climbed through, glass crunching under my boots. Inside was chaos. Shelves knocked over, products scattered everywhere. But the pharmacy counter in back looked mostly intact. I vaulted over the counter. The drug storage was locked, thick metal cabinet with a keypad. Of course it was locked. Why wouldn't it be locked? I looked around frantically. Found a crowbar. Someone else had tried this same plan. Used it to pry at the cabinet. The metal bent, but didn't break. I pried harder. Something was groaning outside. Lots of somethings. The cabinet door popped open. Inside, shelves of pills and orange bottles. I scanned the labels. Amoxicillin, azithromycin, ciprofloxacin. I grabbed all 3. Plus anything else that looked like an antibiotic. Shoved them in my jacket pockets. The moaning was right outside now. I looked toward the broken window. 20, 30 zombies clustering there. Some were trying to climb through. They'd make it eventually. Not gracefully, but they'd make it. I looked around for another exit. Emergency door in back. I ran for it, slammed into it, locked. Of course locked. But the lock was just a deadbolt, and I had a crowbar. I wedged the crowbar in, threw my weight against it. The door frame splintered. Again. The wood cracked. Behind me, the first zombie was climbing through the window, getting tangled in the blinds, but making progress. One more hit. The door burst open. I stumbled into the back alley. More of them here. I ran left, away from the main street. Once the alley opened onto a residential street. I knew this neighborhood. I'd grown up 3 blocks from here. I cut through yards, jumping fences, staying off the streets where possible. The zombies followed but couldn't keep up. I was faster, smarter, alive. Got back to my street, my yard, the oak tree with its dangling ladder. But the yard was full of them, at least 40. They'd heard the commotion, clustered here, between me and the tree. I stood at the fence, looking at that ladder, so close. Annie was up there, dying. I had the medicine, I just had to get to the tree. 40 zombies? Slow, stupid, but 40 of them. I looked at the crowbar in my hand, looked at them, did the math. No way. Even slow and stupid, 40 was too many. They'd drag me down, tear me apart. I'd seen it happen to others. I needed a distraction. The Johnson's house was to my left, still standing, mostly intact. I ran to it, found the propane tank for their grill in the back, hauled it to the fence. The zombies in my yard hadn't seen me yet. They were clustered around the tree, moaning up at Annie. I opened the propane valve. Gas hissed out. I waited 30 seconds, letting it flow into my yard, then through my lighter. The explosion wasn't huge, not like the movies, but it was loud and bright. And it got their attention. All 40 heads turned toward the flash. They started shambling toward it, toward the fence, away from the tree. I vaulted the fence on the opposite side, sprinted across my yard. Some of them saw me, turned back, but I was too fast. Grabbed the ladder, climbed. Hands grabbed at my feet. I kicked them away, kept climbing, 8 feet up, 10 feet, 12 feet. A safe. I collapsed on the platform, breathing so hard I thought my lungs would burst. Annie was there, eyes wide. "You did it," she croaked. I pulled the pill bottles from my pockets, showed them to her. "Yeah," I gasped. "I did it." I gave her azithromycin. 2 pills immediately, then 1 a day for 10 days. I didn't know if it was the right antibiotic for what she had, but it was all I could do. 3 days later, her cough started to improve. A week later, she was breathing normally again. "You saved my life," she said. "You'd do the same for me." I don't know if I'd be that brave. "Yes, you would." She smiled. First real smile in weeks. 5 months in, we had our first major structural failure. One of the support beams under the main platform cracked during a windstorm. Not broken, but cracked badly enough that I didn't trust it. I spent 2 days reinforcing it with salvaged wood from the rope bridges. Had to dismantle our connection to the birch tree to get enough material. It meant losing access to that whole section of our foraging network, but the main platform was more important. While I worked, Annie kept watch. She'd gotten good at tracking zombie movements, predicting their patterns. She could tell by the moaning whether they were clustered or dispersed, moving toward us or away. "There's less of them," she said one afternoon, "over the past month. Have you noticed?" I had noticed. The constant moaning that had been background noise for months was quieter now. We'd see individual zombies instead of herds. "Maybe they're dying," I said. "Really dying. And whatever's animating them is running out. Or maybe they're just moving somewhere else, following food. There's no food. Everyone's dead or in hiding. Animals then. Deer, dogs, cats. I've seen them hunting animals." She was right. I'd seen it too. A pack of zombies cornering a dog, tearing it apart. They'd eat anything with a pulse. "If they're all hunting animals, that's good for us," I said. "Means they're not focused on finding humans. Unless we make noise. Then they remember we're here." We'd learned that lesson. Stay quiet, move slowly, don't attract attention. It had kept us alive this long. 6 months in, I made my second trip to the pharmacy. Annie's antibiotics had run out, and I wanted a stockpile in case she got sick again. or in case I got sick. This trip was easier. I'd learned from the first one. Went at dawn, moved fast, used a different route. Found the pharmacy already looted by someone else, but the back storage room still had supplies. Grabbed everything I could carry. On the way back, I saw the warehouse survivors again. They were on their roof, working in their gardens. 3 of them visible this time. They had solar panels set up, rain collection systems. They'd built something sustainable. I wanted to call out to them, wave, make contact. But I was on the ground, exposed, with zombies potentially nearby. Making noise would be suicide. So I just watched for a moment, then kept moving. Got back to the tree without incident. Annie pulled me up the last few feet. We had a pulley system now, made the climb easier. "You're getting better at this," she said. "Practice makes perfect." 7 months in, we had our first real conversation about the future. "We can't stay here forever," Annie said. We were sitting on the platform, eating blackberries I'd foraged. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Almost beautiful if you didn't look at the abandoned houses and wandering corpses below. "Why not?" I asked. "Winter's coming, a real winter. What we have won't keep us warm enough. We'll freeze. So we insulate, build better walls." "With what materials?" "We've used everything nearby. To get more, you'd have to go farther. Take bigger risks." She was right. We'd stripped every accessible house of useful supplies. To keep building, I'd need to venture blocks away, and every trip was a risk. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "We try to reach them, the people on the warehouse. They have a better setup. Solar power, a real shelter, safety in numbers. It's 8 blocks, through zombie-infested streets. You made it to the pharmacy and back, twice. That's 2 blocks, not 8. And I was alone, moving fast. We'd be together, trying to carry supplies." "So we don't carry supplies. We just go. Get there with the clothes on our backs and whatever medicine we can pocket." I thought about it. Really thought about it. The warehouse people clearly had a sustainable setup. If we could reach them, if they'd take us in, we'd have better odds of surviving the winter. Hell, better odds of surviving, period. But it was a massive risk. We were safe here. Uncomfortable, isolated, but safe. "Let me scout it first," I said. "Plan the route, see what we're dealing with." "When?" "Tomorrow." The next morning, I left at dawn. Took the rope ladder down, set off toward the warehouse. This time, I wasn't rushing. I was mapping, noting which streets had heavy zombie presence, which yards were clear, which houses might provide cover. The route was doable. Dangerous, but doable. Lots of places to hide if needed, a few tight squeezes, but nothing impassable. I got within 2 blocks of the warehouse when I heard the gunshot. Single shot. High-powered rifle. Came from the warehouse roof. I ducked behind a car, scanned the area, saw a zombie maybe 50 yards from me, stumbling toward a sound I couldn't hear. Saw it drop. Headshot. They were protecting their perimeter, shooting any zombie that got too close. I waited, watching. Wanted to see if they'd spotted me, but no second shot came. They'd hit their target and stopped. Slowly, I stood up, waved my arms over my head, took a risk. Not for a long moment, nothing. Then I saw movement on the roof. Someone looking through binoculars, pointing at me. I kept my arms up. Universal signal of surrender or peace or please don't shoot me. Another person appeared on the roof. Then a third. They were talking, gesturing. Then one of them waved back. They'd seen me, acknowledged me. I pointed at myself. then at the warehouse, asking, "Can I come?" More discussion, then a thumbs up. Clear signal. Yes. I started walking toward them. Slow, careful, watching for zombies. Made it about a block before I heard the moaning behind me. I turned. 5 of them, coming from a side street. Moving faster than usual, they'd seen me, locked onto me as prey. I ran. Not back toward home, but toward the warehouse. The people there had guns. They could help. The moaning behind me multiplied. More zombies joining the chase. I didn't look back, just ran. 2 more blocks, 1 more block. I could see the warehouse clearly now. Could see people on the roof with rifles. They started shooting. Controlled shots. Pop, pop, pop. Behind me, zombies were dropping. I reached the warehouse. The front door was barricaded, but there was a ladder on the side. Metal fire escape ladder. First section pulled up like ours. But as I approached, it started lowering. They were helping me. I grabbed it, climbed fast, hands grabbed my legs. Zombies had caught up. I kicked wildly, felt my boot connect with a face, kept climbing. More gunshots. The hands released. I scrambled up the ladder, over the roof edge, collapsed on the rooftop. 3 people stood over me. 2 men, 1 woman, all holding rifles. "You okay?" one of the men asked. I nodded, gasping for breath. "Where'd you come from?" "Oak Tree," I managed. 2-story house, 6 blocks east. Been there 7 months. "In a tree?" The woman. She looked skeptical. "Built a platform. It's safe. High up." "You alone?" "Wife. She's there, waiting for me." They looked at each other. Some silent communication passing between them. "You want to join us?" the first man asked. "That why you came?" I nodded. "Got any skills? Medical training, engineering, farming, software development, some carpentry. I can learn." More silent looks. "Here's the deal," the woman said. "We're 15 people here. We've got systems, rules. Everyone works, everyone contributes. We don't tolerate dead weight." I understand. "We've got food, power, water collection. We're sustainable. But winter's coming and we need to expand our growing capacity. You help with that, you can stay." "What about my wife?" "She pull her weight too. She's a teacher, smart, hard worker. Can she shoot?" I don't know." The woman smiled. "She'll learn. Go get her. You've got until dark. After that, we pull up the ladder and you're on your own." I looked at the sun. Maybe 6 hours of daylight left. 6 hours to get back to Annie, convince her to leave everything we'd built, make the 8-block journey here. "I'll make it," I said. "Hope so," the woman replied. "We could use more people who can think on their feet." The return trip was easier. I knew the route now. Moved fast, avoided the streets where I'd seen heavy zombie presence. Made it back to the oak tree in under an hour. Annie was waiting on the platform, me watching with binoculars. "I saw them lower the ladder for you," she called down as I climbed. "I saw you make it to the roof." "They said we can join them," I said, pulling myself up. "Both of us. But we have to be there by dark." "That's less than 6 hours." "I know." She looked around the platform. 7 months of work, our home, our survival. "We can't take anything with us," I said. "Too much weight. We have to move fast." "The medicine?" "We'll carry what we can. The rest stays." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, let's go." We packed light, 1 small backpack with the most important antibiotics, some first aid supplies. Changed into our sturdiest clothes, best boots. I took the crowbar. Annie took the hammer. We stood at the edge of the platform, looking at the rope ladder. This was it. And once we went down, we weren't coming back. "You ready?" I asked. "No," she said. "But let's do it anyway." We climbed down together, hit the ground, and immediately started moving. Fast walk, not quite a run. Conserving energy for the longer haul, the first 2 blocks were clear. We moved through yards, stayed off the main streets. I led, Annie followed close behind. Block 3, we hit our first group. 6 zombies in the middle of the street. They saw us, started moaning. We ran. They followed but couldn't keep up. We put distance between us, cut through a yard, over a fence. Lost them. Block 4 was a nightmare. The street was packed, maybe 40 zombies, all clustered around something. We had to backtrack, find another route. Lost precious time. The sun was getting lower, maybe 3 hours of light left. Block 5, then Annie stumbled. Went down hard on the pavement. I stopped, helped her up. Her knee was bleeding through torn jeans. "I'm fine," she said. "Keep going." But she was limping, and 3 zombies had hurt us, were shambling our way. We moved faster despite the limp. The zombies followed but fell behind. We turned a corner, found an unlocked garage, ducked inside. Held our breath, waited. The zombies passed by outside, didn't see us. Kept walking. We waited 5 more minutes, then kept going. Block 6, Block 7. We could see the warehouse now. So close, that's when we heard the screaming. Someone else, not far away. A man's voice, screaming for help. Screaming that they were everywhere. "Please, God, help me." Annie froze. "We have to—" "No," I said. "We can't help him. Derek, we can't. We don't have weapons. Well, we don't have time. We help him. We die too." The screaming continued. Then it got worse. The man was begging. Then he was just screaming. No words, just agony. Annie was crying, but she kept walking. The screaming stopped. We reached the warehouse with maybe an hour of daylight left. The people on the roof saw us coming, started lowering the ladder. We climbed up. This time, no zombies chasing us. We made it to the top and collapsed. The woman from before was there. Made it with time to spare. "The person screaming," Annie said between gasps. "Did you see what happened?" The woman's expression didn't change. "Yeah, we saw." "Why didn't you help him?" "Because we'd have died too." "Same reason you didn't help him." Annie looked like she'd been slapped, but she didn't argue. What could she say? "Come on," the woman said. I'll show you around. I'm Claire, by the way." The warehouse rooftop was impressive. They'd built raised garden beds covering about half the space, solar panels on metal frames, rain collection systems feeding into large barrels, even a small chicken coop with maybe 6 chickens. "Eggs," Claire explained. "We get 3 or 4 a day. Not much, but better than nothing." There were living spaces too. Tents and lean-tos made from tarps and salvaged materials. Looked like each person or couple had their own small area. "That corner's free," Claire said, pointing. "You can set up there. We've got spare tarps. Building materials are scarce, but you can scavenge." The other survivors came over one by one. Introductions were brief. Names I forgot immediately, too overwhelmed to remember. 15 people total, including us now, with ages ranging from maybe 19 to 60s. Mix of men and women. "We eat communally," Claire explained. "Pool all the food, ration it out fair. Everyone works. Gardens, scavenging, guard duty, maintenance. No exceptions." "I understand," I said. "Good. You start tomorrow. Tonight, rest. Get your bearings." She walked away, left us standing there, 2 newcomers in a community that had clearly been working together for months. Annie looked at me. "Did we make the right choice?" "Ask me in a few months." That night, we lay in our new space under a borrowed tarp, listening to unfamiliar sounds. Other people talking quietly, the chickens making small noises. wind in the solar panel frames. It's weird, Annie whispered, being around other people. And I got used to it just being us. Me too. What if they decide we're not worth keeping? What if we can't pull our weight? Then we'll go back to the tree. Derek, we can't. We don't have supplies anymore. We'd be starting over. Then we don't fail. We work. We prove we're valuable. She was quiet then. I miss our tree already. Yeah, me too. The next morning started early. Someone banged on a metal pot at dawn. Wake-up call. Everyone rose, started their routines. Claire found us. You two. Garden duty today. Luke will show you what to do. Luke was maybe 30, quiet guy with a beard and dirt under his fingernails. He led us to the garden beds. We've got tomatoes, lettuce, carrots, beans, he said. Not enough to sustain 15 people, but it's supplements. Your job is weeding, watering, and checking for pests. It was simple work, mindless, but peaceful. The first peaceful work I'd done in 7 months. Annie took to it. She'd always wanted a garden at our old house, but never had time between teaching and other responsibilities. Now she had nothing but time. We worked until noon, then communal lunch. Thin soup with vegetables from the garden, some kind of meat I didn't ask about. Probably squirrel or rat. Tasted fine. Afternoon was scavenging duty. Claire led a group of 4 of us, me, Annie, and 2 others, whose names I'd finally learned. Marcus and Julia. Wait, shit. Not Marcus. I said no common names like Marcus. Let's call him Trevor. Trevor and Julia. We climbed down the ladder to ground level, armed with knives and improvised spears. Our job. Check nearby buildings for supplies, avoid zombies, or be back before dark. Trevor had done this dozens of times. Led us through a careful route, watching corners, listening constantly. We hit 3 buildings. Found some canned food in one, tools in another, nothing in the third. On the way back, we saw a herd. Maybe 100 zombies, all clustered together in what used to be a parking lot. Just standing there, swaying, moaning. They do that sometimes, Trevor whispered. Cluster up. No idea why. We gave them a wide berth. Made it back to the warehouse without incident. That night, sitting around with the group, someone asked how Annie and I had survived. Treehouse, I said. Built a platform up in an oak tree. Lived there 7 months. Seriously? This from a younger guy, maybe early 20s. Name was Ben. Seriously? Just the 2 of you, for 7 months? And how'd you not go crazy? I looked at Annie. She smiled slightly. We came close, she admitted. But we had each other. The group was quiet for a moment. Then Claire spoke. Everyone here has a story. How they survived the first months. Where they were when it started, what they saw. She paused. We don't talk about it much. Too painful. But it's good to remember we all made it somehow. Against odds that killed millions. Murmurs of agreement. Derek, Annie, Claire continued. You survived 7 months alone in a tree. That takes serious resourcefulness. We're glad you're here. It was the first time anyone had expressed anything like welcome. I felt something loosen in my chest. Something I hadn't realized was tight. Thank you, I said. We're glad to be here too. And I meant it. Days turned into weeks, and we fell into the rhythm of the warehouse community. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. It was structured in a way the treehouse had never been. Everyone had roles, responsibilities. It worked. Annie thrived in the garden. Turned out she had a knack for it. Within 2 weeks, she'd reorganized the layout for better sun exposure, started a composting system, even got seeds germinating for winter vegetables. I focused on structural improvements. The warehouse roof was sturdy, but the living spaces could be better. I built proper frames for the tents, reinforced weak points, created windbreaks. The community accepted us slowly. Claire remained skeptical, but fair. Trevor became a friend, teaching me scavenging techniques. Julia taught Annie to shoot. Ben was friendly to everyone, the group's morale officer. 2 months in the warehouse, and I climbed to the highest point, a ventilation tower about 20 feet above the main roof, and looked out over Portland. The city was dead, really dead. Buildings burned out, streets filled with abandoned cars, zombies scattered everywhere, but in smaller numbers than before. Nature was starting to reclaim things. Ivy growing over fences, trees bursting through pavement, deer wandering the empty neighborhoods. It was the end of the world. And somehow, we were still here. From up there, I could see our old house, the oak tree. The platform was still there, barely visible through the branches. Our home for 7 months. Empty now. I felt a strange grief looking at it, like mourning a friend. You miss it? Annie had climbed up behind me. Sometimes. It was ours, you know. We built it. Survived there, just us. This is better, though. More secure, more people. I know. But sometimes I miss the quiet. Miss it just being us. She slipped her hand into mine. It's still us. Just us plus 13 others. I laughed. Yeah. We stood there for a while, looking at the dead city. You think there's still government somewhere? Annie asked. Army, FEMA, something? Maybe. If there is, they haven't made it here. So we're on our own. We've been on our own since day one. 3 months at the warehouse. Winter hit hard. Snow came early, covered the city in white. Beautiful and deadly. The zombies moved slower in the cold. Some stopped moving entirely, frozen in place. But the living conditions got harder too. We'd prepared, insulated the living spaces, stockpiled firewood from scavenging runs. The solar panels produced less power with shorter days. Okay, but enough to keep essentials running. Food got tight. The garden stopped producing. We relied on stored supplies and hunting. Small game mostly, rabbits, squirrels. One guy, name of Keith, managed to bring down a deer. We ate well for a week. Then Keith didn't come back from a scavenging run. Just disappeared. We sent a search party. Found his body 3 blocks away, torn apart. How many zombies it took, we couldn't tell. Too many. That was the first death, not the last. Julia fell during a supply run, broke her ankle. We got her back to the warehouse, but infection set in. The antibiotics I'd brought from the pharmacy helped, but not enough. She died 2 weeks later. Ben took his own life on a Tuesday. No warning, just climbed down the ladder one night and walked into a herd. We heard him screaming. Then we didn't. Claire said we couldn't grieve. Had to keep moving forward. But I saw her crying one night when she thought no one was watching. We were down to 12 people. Then 11 when an older woman named Patricia died of what we thought was a heart attack. Just went to sleep one night and didn't wake up. The winter felt endless. Annie and I clung to each other. Some nights, when the wind howled and the temperature dropped below freezing, we'd huddle in our tent and wonder if we'd made the right choice leaving the tree. At least we're not alone, Annie would say. Yeah. We have each other plus a community. That's better than just us. Is it? Half the community is dead. Half is still alive. I couldn't argue with that logic. Spring came slowly. The snow melted. Zombies that had frozen started moving again. But there were fewer. noticeably fewer. Whatever mechanism kept them animated was breaking down. We saw corpses that were really dead, bodies that stayed down. "They're dying," Trevor said. "Really dying. Give it another year, maybe 2, and they'll all be gone." "You think?" Annie asked. "Has to be. They don't eat enough to sustain themselves. They're running on whatever's left in their systems. Eventually, that runs out." It gave us hope. Real hope. Maybe we could outlast this. Maybe Portland could be rebuilt. 1 year at the warehouse, we had a meeting. All 11 survivors. Claire spoke. "We've been reacting this whole time, surviving day to day. But we need to start thinking long-term, building something sustainable, something permanent." "Like what?" I asked. "A real settlement. Farms, power generation, walls, safety. We find other survivors. You bring them in, start rebuilding." The group was quiet. It sounded like fantasy, like something from before. "How?" someone asked. "Same way we've survived this far. Work, planning, not giving up." We spent hours talking, planning, dreaming. It felt good to think beyond tomorrow, beyond next week. That night, lying with Annie under our tent, I felt something I hadn't felt in a year. Actual hope for the future. "We're going to make it," I said. "You sound certain." "I am. We've survived a year, the worst year. Whatever comes next, we can handle it." She kissed me. "I love you." "I love you too." 14 months since the outbreak, since everything fell apart, since we climbed that oak tree and built a life 12 feet off the ground. 14 months of terror and loss and desperate survival. But we were still here, still fighting, still human. The zombies were dying off. We were learning to farm, to hunt, to build. Other survivors were out there. We'd seen signals from across the river, smoke from other settlements. Humanity wasn't extinct. It was just scattered, hiding, rebuilding slowly. And we were part of that, part of whatever came next. I looked out at the city from our warehouse roof. Portland was dead, but not gone. Seeds were literally pushing up through the pavement. Life finding a way. "Derek," Annie's voice. "Yeah? What are you thinking about?" "The future. What we build next." She came and stood beside me. We looked out together at the dead city and the green things growing through it. "We're going to make it," she said. Not a question, a statement. "Yeah," I agreed. "We are." Somewhere in the distance, a zombie moaned, but it sounded farther away than before. Quieter, like an echo of something already gone. We stood there as the sun set, 2 survivors among 11, looking at the world we'd have to rebuild. But that's a story for another time. For now, this is where we are. Alive. Together. 1 year into the apocalypse and still standing. That's enough. We settled into year 2 with cautious optimism. The zombie population continued to decline. Whether from natural decay or just spreading out across the landscape, we couldn't be sure. Our scavenging runs became longer, safer. We started mapping the city, marking safe routes, noting resources. Claire organized us into specialized teams. Annie headed agriculture, using her teaching skills to train others in seed saving, composting, crop rotation. I led construction, expanding our rooftop settlement. We built a second level, an actual structure with framed walls, salvaged windows, even insulation. It wasn't beautiful, but it was functional. We moved the chickens up there. 6 had become 12 through careful breeding. Fresh eggs became a regular luxury. Trevor and I started clearing the warehouse interior. It had been too dangerous before. Too many hiding spots for zombies, too dark. But with the threat decreasing, we risked it. Found supplies, actual treasure. The warehouse had belonged to a home improvement chain. There were aisles of tools, building materials, even some preserved food in a break room. We hauled everything useful to the roof. "This changes things," Claire said when she saw what we'd found. "We can actually build now. Real structures. Maybe even start clearing ground level." "Too risky," Trevor cautioned. "Even with fewer zombies. Not now, but eventually." 5 months into year 2, we made contact with another settlement. Radio. We'd found a CB radio during a scavenging run. Got it working, started broadcasting. Generic messages. "Survivors at warehouse on Maple and 3rd. Have shelter, food, looking for others." For weeks, nothing. Then one night, a crackled response. "Copy that warehouse. This is Riverside Settlement. 23 survivors. How copy?" We nearly cheered. 23 more people. 23 survivors we didn't know about. Over the next weeks, we established regular communication. Riverside was holed up in a hospital about 2 miles away. They had medical supplies, a working generator, but limited food. We had farming. They had medicine. And the obvious solution was trade. But 2 miles through zombie territory was dangerous, even with the decline in numbers. We planned carefully, met halfway. Both groups sent 5 people. We brought vegetables, seeds, eggs. They brought antibiotics, surgical supplies, painkillers. The trade went smoothly. No zombie encounters. Both groups benefited. More importantly, we weren't alone. 34 humans in Portland were alive and communicating. That we knew of. Over the months, we established more contacts. Radio signals from across the city. A group in the financial district. Another in the suburbs. Single survivors here and there. The network grew. By the end of year 2, we'd made contact with 8 different groups. Maybe 90 people total. Not many in a city that used to hold millions, but more than 0. Claire called a meeting with the other settlement leaders. We needed organization, she argued. Needed to coordinate, pool resources, start thinking about real reconstruction. They met at a neutral location, a park roughly central to all settlements. Each leader brought 2 others, 24 of us standing in overgrown grass, surrounded by the ruins of the city, planning the future. It felt surreal, like children playing government. But it worked. We established trade routes, communication protocols, shared information about zombie movements, dangerous areas, good scavenging locations. Someone suggested a name for the alliance. Portland Survivors Collective. PSC for short. It sounded too official, too grand. But we adopted it anyway. Year 3 brought challenges we hadn't anticipated. The easy scavenging was done, like we'd stripped the nearby buildings clean. To find supplies now meant going farther, taking bigger risks. And while zombie numbers continued to drop, they hadn't disappeared. We lost people. 2 from our settlement died when a scavenging run went wrong. They'd gotten trapped in a building. Zombies had clustered outside. By the time the rescue team arrived, it was too late. Other settlements reported similar losses. The zombies were fewer, but no less dangerous. We also faced new threats, raiders, other survivors who decided cooperation wasn't their strategy. They'd hit settlements at night, steal supplies, sometimes kill. Our warehouse got hit 6 months into year 3. They came over the roof edge while half of us were sleeping. 3 armed men with clubs and knives. They wanted food, medicine, weapons. We fought back, and we'd gotten tougher over 3 years. These weren't the scared suburban people we'd been. We'd survived the apocalypse. We knew how to fight. One raider died. Claire put a knife in his throat. The other two ran. We posted guards after that. 24-hour watch. It meant less sleep, more strain, but necessary. The PSC organized a security force. Volunteers from each settlement who'd patrol, respond to threats, protect trade routes. I volunteered. So did Annie. We trained with the weapons we had. Mostly improvised. Spears, clubs, bows we'd made from salvaged materials. One settlement had guns, but ammunition was running low. Had to save bullets for emergencies. The patrols gave us a better view of the city. We saw how nature was reclaiming everything. Buildings covered in ivy. Trees growing through windows, animals everywhere. Deer, raccoons, coyotes, even a bear once. Portland was becoming wilderness again. We also saw the zombies continuing to deteriorate. Some couldn't walk anymore, just crawled. Others had collapsed and didn't move at all. The threat was still real, but diminishing. Give it 2 more years, Trevor predicted. They'll all be gone. Then what? Annie asked. Then we rebuild for real. Clear the city, establish agriculture, bring in more survivors from outside. You think there are survivors outside Portland? Has to be. This happened everywhere. Some people survived everywhere. Year 4, we started making longer expeditions. Teams would go out for days, mapping territory, looking for supplies and survivors. Annie and I led a team south, towards Salem. Found small survivor groups in the towns between. Brought them back to Portland. Integrated them into the PSC. Our warehouse settlement grew to 20 people. The PSC overall had maybe 200 now. Small by pre-apocalypse standards. A decent start for rebuilding. We started clearing ground-level buildings, the warehouse first. We swept every room, every corner. Found 3 zombies still inside, put them down, then we claimed it. The space was massive. We could fit our entire settlement inside with room to spare. Started moving operations down from the roof. Kept the gardens and solar panels up top, but living spaces moved inside. Real beds, real walls, real doors that locked. After years on an exposed rooftop, it felt like luxury. Claire stepped down as leader. Said she was tired, wanted to just farm and rest. The settlement elected me to replace her. I didn't want it. Leadership in the apocalypse meant making life and death decisions. Meant sending people into danger. Meant dealing with disputes, rationing, all the ugly necessities of survival. But they wanted me. Said I'd proven myself. Said I was fair. Annie convinced me to accept. Someone has to do it. Might as well be someone who cares. So I became leader, coordinator, whatever you wanted to call it. The job was harder than building tree houses or fighting zombies. People were complicated. Everyone had needs, opinions, conflicts. Some days I wanted to climb back up that oak tree and hide. But we made progress, established more structure, rules for trading, for conflict resolution, for resource distribution. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Year 5. The last zombie I personally saw was in October. It was barely mobile. Crawling down a street, one arm missing, clothes rotted completely away, just bones and dried skin and something that used to be human. I put it down with a spear, watched it stop moving, felt nothing. After that, sightings became rare, then stopped altogether. By year's end, the PSC had gone 3 months without a zombie encounter. We did it, Annie said. We actually survived. Looks like it. What now? Now we live, really live, not just survive. We started expanding agriculture. Cleared lots and planted crops, corn, wheat, vegetables. It was hard work. We didn't have machinery, just hand tools and labor. But it produced food. The PSC grew. We sent messengers east, north, south, found more survivors, brought them in or established contact. The network expanded. Someone got a radio transmitter working, real power, a real range. We started broadcasting. Portland PSC survivors welcome. We have food, shelter, safety. And people came. Not many. A few dozen over the year. But each person was a victory. Each survivor who made it was proof that humanity continued. We started schools. Actual schools for the kids who'd been born after the outbreak or who'd survived. Teaching them to read, write, math. But also teaching them practical skills. Farming, building, defending. Annie loved teaching again. Watching her work with kids, seeing her happy, it made everything worth it. We started families. People pairing off, having children, new life in a dead city. It was hope made physical. Year 6, Annie told me she was pregnant. I'd thought I couldn't be surprised anymore. Thought I'd seen everything. But that news hit me like lightning. Igar, are you sure? I asked. Pretty sure. I'm 3 months late and I can't stop throwing up. We're going to have a baby. Yeah. I kissed her. Hard. Didn't care that we were standing in the middle of the warehouse with 30 people around. We're going to have a baby, I said again. She laughed. I heard you the first time. Pregnancy in the apocalypse was terrifying. No hospitals. Limited medicine. If something went wrong. But the Riverside settlement had a doctor. Actual MD who'd survived. She checked Annie, said everything looked normal. We prepared. Made a nursery in our room. Gathered supplies, cloth for diapers, clothes scavenged from old stores. The community pitched in. Everyone excited for new life. Claire made a cradle from scrap wood. Trevor found a stack of children's books in a library run. Someone else contributed a hand-sewn blanket. It was beautiful. This hard, tough group of survivors becoming soft for a baby who hadn't even been born yet. Annie's pregnancy progressed. She got huge, complained about her back, her feet, everything. I loved every minute of it. She went into labor on a Tuesday morning, early, about a month before expected. The doctor came fast, set up in our room. I stayed, holding Annie's hand, trying to be strong while internally panicking. Labor lasted 19 hours. Long, hard, scary hours. There were moments I thought we'd lose her. Lose them both. But at 3 a.m. Wednesday, our daughter was born. Small, pink, screaming her lungs out. Perfect. The doctor handed her to Annie. We both cried. She needs a name, Annie said. We'd discussed it, argued about it for months. Hope, I said. Or we should name her Hope. Annie smiled. Hope, yeah, that's perfect. Hope grew, healthy, happy, loud. The whole settlement doted on her. First baby born in the PSC, symbol of the future. Other babies followed, not many. Population was still small, but enough. The next generation was being born. Year 7, the PSC made a decision. We'd clear downtown Portland, make it safe, make it home. It was ambitious. The downtown area had been a disaster zone. Thousands of zombies, maybe more. Buildings collapsed, fires, total chaos. But the zombies were gone now. The fires had burned out years ago. What remained was valuable real estate. Buildings intact enough to use. Infrastructure we could restore. We organized a massive expedition, 100 people from across the PSC. Armed, supplied, ready to spend weeks clearing and exploring. And Annie stayed back with Hope. I led one of the teams. Downtown was eerie. Silent except for wind and wildlife. We moved through streets I'd known my whole life. They looked alien now. Nature everywhere, cars rusted to husks, buildings covered in vegetation. We found bodies. Lots of bodies. Real corpses, completely still. We buried what we could, marked mass graves for the rest. We also found supplies, office buildings full of furniture, equipment, paper goods, stores untouched by scavengers, an entire grocery warehouse with canned goods, dry foods, sealed, preserved, still good. We found a hospital with a pharmacy intact, drugs beyond what we'd dreamed of, real antibiotics, painkillers, insulin for the 2 diabetics in the PSC who'd been rationing for years. We found weapons, a police armory mostly looted but still holding a few rifles, some ammunition, a sporting goods store with bows, camping gear, tools. But mostly, we found emptiness. A city of 500,000 reduced to ruins and memories. It took 3 weeks to clear and map downtown. When we returned, we had a plan. The PSC would move operations there, establish a real settlement, bring in agriculture, build walls, create something permanent. The move took months. Slowly, carefully, we transported people and supplies. Set up in a cluster of buildings near the waterfront. Good location, access to the river for water and food, strong buildings, defensible. We called it New Portland. Bit pretentious maybe, but it felt right. Year 8, New Portland had a population of 400. Survivors from across Oregon had heard the broadcasts, made the journey, and we absorbed them, integrated them. We established a government, elected council, rules, laws. It was primitive, but functional. We restored power. Engineers in the group got a hydroelectric generator working on the river. Not much power, but enough for lights, radio, essential equipment. We built walls around the settlement perimeter. Nothing fancy, just high fences reinforced with salvaged materials. But they defined our space, made us feel secure. We started industry. Blacksmithing to make tools, tannery for leather, textile production from salvaged fibers. People specialized, traded skills. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were rebuilding civilization. Annie taught in the school. 23 kids now, age ranges from hope at 2 years old to teenagers who barely remembered the old world. I worked on expansion plans. There were other cities out there, other survivor groups. We needed to connect, trade, coordinate. We sent expeditions, north to Seattle, south to Eugene, east into the mountains. Looking for survivors, establishing routes, mapping what remained. Seattle was dead, completely burned. If there were survivors, they were scattered and hidden. We left supplies and radio frequencies, moved on. Eugene had a small group, maybe 50 people. We established contact, started trade. They had farmland. We had manufacturing. Made sense to cooperate. East into the mountains, we found scattered homesteaders. People who'd fled the cities early, survived in isolation. Some wanted to join New Portland. Others preferred independence, but agreed to trade. The network grew. By year's end, and we were in contact with maybe 15 different settlements across Oregon and Washington. Total population around 1,500 people. Not much. But more than 7 years ago, when Annie and I climbed into that oak tree, certain we were alone. Year 9, we faced our first real test as a society. A settlement to the east, we called them Mountain Home, stopped communicating, just went silent. Radio calls unanswered. We sent a team to investigate. They found the settlement destroyed, not zombies, raiders, human raiders who'd wiped out the entire group. 43 people dead. The PSC Council met in emergency session. We had to respond, had to show that attacking PSC settlements had consequences. We organized a militia. 50 volunteers armed with our best weapons. I wanted to go, but the council voted against it. "Well, you're too valuable to risk," they said. "Send someone else." Trevor led it, tracked the raiders east, found them camped near the old Cascade Locks. 20 raiders, well armed, organized. Our militia hit them at dawn. It was brutal. I got the report later. 15 raiders died, 5 escaped. None of ours killed, though 3 wounded. Trevor brought back the raider leader, hands tied, face swollen from fighting. The council debated his fate. Some wanted execution, others wanted imprisonment, others wanted to let him go with a warning. In the end, we held a trial. First trial in New Portland. The evidence was clear. 43 people murdered. The raider leader confessed, even seemed proud. We voted. Execution won. Barely. Close enough that it split the community. I had to give the order. As leader, it fell to me, and they hanged him in the settlement square. Made it public, wanted everyone to see that justice existed, that we weren't just survival anymore. I watched him die, felt sick, but also knew it was necessary. We had to protect our people. That execution haunted me, still does. But it also established something important. We were a society. We had laws. Break them, face consequences. Year 10 arrived, a full decade since the outbreak. We held a ceremony, remembered the dead, celebrated the living, looked toward the future. The PSC now numbered over 2,000 people across 20 settlements. New Portland remained the largest at 600. We'd reclaimed farmland, produced enough food to not just survive, but to have surplus. We traded that surplus with other settlements, with isolated survivors. We'd restored basic infrastructure, water systems, limited electricity, sanitation, not modern by pre-apocalypse standards, but functional. We'd established education, healthcare, industry, government, all primitive, all improvised, but all working. We'd survived. Annie and I stood on the waterfront, watching Hope play with other kids. She was 4 now, growing fast, smart, curious, fearless. "You ever think about that oak tree?" Annie asked. "Sometimes. Seems like a lifetime ago." It was a lifetime ago. We're different people now. She was right. The scared couple who'd climbed into that tree wouldn't recognize us now. We'd become harder, tougher, but also more hopeful. "What do you think happens next?" I asked. "We keep building, keep growing. Maybe one day we have a real city again. Now with power and running water and everything." That's optimistic. I'm allowed to be optimistic. We survived the apocalypse. Everything after this is gravy. I laughed, put my arm around her. "Yeah, I guess it is." Hope ran up to us, breathless from playing. "Daddy, Mommy, come see what we built." She dragged us over to a pile of scrap wood where the kids had constructed something that might charitably be called a fort. "It's our house," Hope announced. "Way up high so the zombies can't get us." Annie and I looked at each other, smiled. "That's very smart," Annie said. "Always good to build up high." Hope nodded seriously. "That's what you and Daddy did, in the tree, before I was born." "That's right. Can we go see it? The treehouse?" I hesitated. The old neighborhood was outside New Portland's walls. Not dangerous exactly, but not entirely safe either. "Maybe someday," I said. "When you're older." "I'm old enough now." "When you're older?" She pouted but didn't push. Ran back to her friends. "We should go," Annie said quietly. "See the tree, see if it's still standing." "Why?" "I don't know. Closure, nostalgia, to show hope where it all started for us." I thought about it. That oak tree, that platform, the place where we'd survived the worst of it. "Okay," I said. "Next week. We'll make a day trip, just us and Hope." The next week, we left early. Just the 3 of us, armed but not expecting trouble. The route to our old neighborhood was well traveled now. PSC patrols kept it clear. The old suburb looked weird in daylight. I'd spent so long viewing it from above, from the tree, and seeing it from ground level felt wrong somehow. Our house was still standing. Roof collapsed on one side, windows broken, but standing. The oak tree in back looked healthy, if anything bigger than before, and the platform was still there. We stood at the base, looking up. The wood was weathered gray, warped in places. Some boards had fallen, but the main structure remained. "Can we climb it?" Hope asked. I tested the rope ladder, still hanging, though frayed. Probably wouldn't hold an adult. "Not safe anymore," I said. "Please?" Annie knelt down to Hope's level. "That platform saved our lives. Your daddy built it before you were born. We lived up there for months when the whole world was ending." "Why?" "Because the zombies couldn't climb. We were safe up high." Hope looked up at the platform with new interest. "Were you scared?" "Very scared," I said. "But we had each other, and we survived. And then you survived more, and built New Portland, and had me." Annie hugged her. "That's right. And now we're building something even better. A whole new world, for you and all the other kids." Hope seemed to process this. Then, "I'm glad you built the treehouse, or I wouldn't be here." I felt my throat tighten. "Yeah, me too." We stood there for a while, just looking at that platform. Our salvation, our prison, our home for those first desperate months. Then we headed back to New Portland, back to our real home, our real life. The treehouse remained, a monument to survival, to desperation, to hope. But we didn't need it anymore. We had something better now. Present day, year 12 since the outbreak, and the PSC has grown to almost 10,000 people across 40 settlements. New Portland is a real city again. 3,000 residents. Power, running water, schools, markets, government. We've made contact with survivor networks across the country. California has a coalition of 20,000. Texas claims 50,000. Communications are sporadic but regular. Humanity survived, not unscathed. We estimate maybe 90% of the global population died in the first year. But 10% of 7 billion is still 700 million people. We're scattered, isolated, but we're rebuilding. Slowly, carefully, learning from the mistakes that led to the outbreak in the first place. Annie runs the education department now. 30 teachers under her, educating 300 kids. She's talking about starting a college, higher education for the apocalypse generation. I'm still on the council, not leader anymore. Stepped down 2 years ago. Too exhausting, too much responsibility. But I advise on construction, expansion, long-term planning. Hope is 8 now, smart as hell, wants to be a doctor or an engineer, or maybe both. The world is full of possibilities for her in ways it wasn't for us. We still live in the same apartment in New Portland. Small but comfortable. Running water, electricity, heat. Luxuries that still feel like miracles. Sometimes I think about that treehouse, about the desperate couple who built it, who survived in it, who eventually found something better. We drove past the old neighborhood last month. The oak tree had fallen. Some storm, probably. The platform was in pieces on the ground. 12 years of weather had finally claimed it. I felt sad seeing it, but also relieved. That chapter was closed. We'd moved on. Annie held my hand as we drove past. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. We'd survived. Not just the first year, not just the zombies, but everything that came after. The rebuilding, the setbacks, the losses and victories and grinding work of creating civilization from ashes. We'd survive together, and we'd keep surviving. For ourselves, for hope, for the future we were building one day at a time. The apocalypse was over. We'd won. Now came the harder part. Living. Really living. Making a world worth surviving for. But after 12 years of horror and hardship, after everything we'd lost and everything we'd gained, I was finally, genuinely optimistic. We'd survived the end of the world. Thanks for watching, guys. I will be back with another story.